So, question number one: what was your job coming out of college?
My first job coming out of college,
Yes.
Goldman Sachs,
Goldman Sachs. Okay.
investment analyst. So it was an investment banking analyst program where my role was to do the investment analysis and research and all the quantitative modeling stuff, like figuring out how much companies were worth, and then putting together the marketing materials. If we were selling a company, I was the one who had to kind of put all that stuff together.
Okay. What skills or personal characteristics do you feel most contribute to success in this industry?
I'm going to take you off. Personal characteristics for that job, if I heard you right, were basically, had to be top of your class. That was basically, to get that, Emma, that was a really hard job to get. And so you had to be at the top of your class and, a reasonable, just good GPA,
Mm-hmm.
and one of those pretty competitive jobs coming out of undergrad.
Right. What do you do now?
I did that for 2 years. I did that for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
investment banking for 3 years, right out of undergrad, and then I went to another job doing private equity, which is what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for 2 years in Dallas for a company called Hicks Muse, and then I did that for 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then after working, I went to school to get my MBA at Harvard, and so that was a 2-year program. I went to New York, and I worked back in the same thing, doing private equity. I went to a firm called Apax in New York, and then I was there for 3 years. I went to another firm in Boston to do the same thing, was there for 5 years, and then now I've been at my current firm for years. And so for the last 15 years, always doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically private equity investing.
Okay. Could you describe one of your typical work days?
Sure. Part of my workday is looking at new companies to potentially invest in. So one day might be, by the way, can you hear me okay? Because I'm on this headset.
Yeah, that's fine.
Normal workday would be, meeting, let's say, a management team of a company that we potentially want to buy or invest in.
Mm-hmm.
That could be something I do in the morning. I would have several calls with the management teams of the companies that we do own.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially have a call with the CEO or the CFO to talk about the business. Have an hour-long, board call, or maybe an hour-and-a-half board call to review the business. What else do we do? We kind of do research and analysis on new companies that we may want to also invest in.
Mm-hmm.
One second. Excuse me. What else in a typical day? Looking at new companies, helping manage our existing companies. And then the other part would be, in any given part of the cycle, we also meet a lot with our investors, and kind of give them an update on our portfolio. And for example, if there's 10 companies that we own, and when we have funds let's call it $500 million, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a fund that we will invest over 4 to 5 years, and we'll buy, call it 10 companies with that amount of money. And then at the end of that 5-year period, after we've invested the $500 million,
Mm-hmm.
we will want to go out and raise another fund to buy another 10 companies over the next 5 years. And every single time you have to go raise a fund, you got to go meet with investors, try to get the existing investors to give you another allocation of money because they commit over 5 years to give you the money, so it's like a commitment.
Right.
And so you want to convince the existing investors that you've done a good job, that the companies you've bought have increased in value, and you're making good decisions on the companies you're selecting.
Right.
So that involves a lot of travel to kind of convince them that you've done a good job investing their money, and that and try to get new investors to come into the new fund. And so that takes a lot of time to go around and kind of discuss your track record, so to speak, with new and existing investors. So I'd say that's the other chunk of my time that I also spend time on.
Okay. If you could start all over again, what would you change in your career path? Like, would you change it in any way, or?
Not really.
One last question. What do you find most enjoyable in your job?
Most enjoyable about my job, I think I think the most enjoyable thing is interacting with management teams and being able to have an effect on a company. Even though it's just strategic, my job is to oversee the company so that if it's doing badly, figure out what's wrong and help the management team figure out what changes need to be made. And so that's the part that, you feel like you're creating value and helping grow companies. That's probably the most creative and fun part about my job.